Hello YouTube and welcome back to the channel outside the target demographic. Today I'm going to be linseed oiling the side of the car that I have yet to do, so let's get started. It is the end of October, relatively dry and relatively warm outside, so now is the time to go ahead and do what needs done. So I'd released a video previously on how linseed oil will arrest rust that has already been developed and prevent new rust from forming. So I have the linseed oil with me. Now's the time to go ahead and do it right before winter. You can already see it's a 2018 Forester. We've got quite a bit of rust in quite a bit of places. For those of you new to the channel, and my once a video quota of I live in the Rust Belt, I live in Ohio, so you're going to have rust, but there are very simple and relatively cheap things you can do to keep it at bay. So we're going to have a before right here, and let's go ahead and do what we do. What you will need is a tire there, your lug nuts there, a 19mm socket and breaker bar, linseed oil, and water. Doesn't have to be particularly clean. Rainwater will suffice. This is a broom that I got from Dollar Tree for $1.25. I just keep it in the trunk. Helps me clean the things when I need to clean them. So first thing we're going to do is knock off all of this mud. Don't remember going down a mud road, but that's irrelevant. We're just going to brush it off real quick, get off the majority of the stuff, and then we're going to go at it with a steel brush next. Doesn't take much. This isn't going to really do anything to abrade the rust off, but it is a very good way to get water in all the places. I'm just trying to knock off the surface dirt. This is great. You've seen this in a previous video cleaning the engine bay. I mean, that's a foot of an extension, right? So I could get down in between the hoses and air conditioning lines and all that stuff. And it's relatively light pressure in that I'm not sandpapering. I lose leverage being out all the way this far, so less likely to do damage to things. While you're in here, check your shocks and struts for any oil leaks. Even if you're getting it wet with a brush, oil is hydrophobic. It does not mix with water, so you're still going to see oil. There we go. Right there. Water started changing the color, which is a pretty good indicator. Just gonna spend 3-4 minutes here. Do try and get the facing the road side of the things. That is where the majority of the mud is going to adhere, and the majority of the snow and salt is going to touch. So that's kind of the biggest concern, what we definitely want to get to today. Okay. At this point, just trying to get the control arms, linkages, everything inside the wheel well. The engine bay is pretty much protected by beauty plates, plastic skid plates underneath, so good on Subaru for doing that. Imagine it has more to do with aerodynamics and fuel efficiency than providing you a non-rusting engine bay, but we're going to let that sit for a bit, and we can go right on to the back wheels and do those as well. All right, so if you wanted to, you could get a shop rag and wipe it down. You can already see I had some here on the brake, which is not any warmer than the rest of the car, even though I just got back from a drive. And it is drying enough. So Shop rag wouldn't be a terrible idea. Air drying, probably, 10-15 minutes, it'll be fine. Everything I hit with water, we're going to be trying to get with the linseed oil. So I don't know what these things are, so play along. The wishbone, the arm across there, your axle, your shocks and struts, definitely your brake caliper, and your control arms and linkages in the front. So we'll let that dry and cut back. As we have that drying, let's cut to this side. Same song and dance here, just a little louder with the kids gaining an interest. All the way up there. Gotta tell you, this brush is quite nice. The bristles are long enough, it will get into uneven surfaces. Get in between those springs to get up that loop. All the way back up in there without having to get your shirt or arm too dirty. Basically, I don't plan to have to do it. Logic would dictate the longer I have the car, the more miles are on the car, the more winters are on the car, and all of that will stack up to the one faithful day I have to replace something back here or take the car in to be rear end and front end aligned or blah blah blah. One, being able to identify the nuts, bolts, screws, everything from the rust will be beneficial. Second, being able to free the nuts, bolts, screws from the rust will be a benefit as well. So if it takes you 10 minutes a year brush everything out with water and linseed oil it, so be it. Also a good time to check for brake powder or failing brake lines, bubble in your brake line, bulge is what I mean. Uneven wear on the rotors, all the things. So, I don't know if you saw, but you got some discolored water running down just from doing that. So I'm going to give everything a wipe down. It's all going to get hit with rain and snow anyway, so I can't really do much back here with the water. Okay. Also, you had orange on black before, and now that you get everything wet, the rust is going to stand out quite a bit better. So we know where we absolutely need to hit. Nothing back here looks terrible. So that's what we got. We're going to let this dry as well, and then we're going to go at it with the wire brush. The front well is drying. This one has yet to begin drying. While we're waiting, we can clean up both the tire, but also the rim on the exterior as well as the interior. So let's do that. Look much nicer until, the first time I take them for a drive. And as always, if there is dirt or mud, then you're not wasting your time. Apologize for the background noise. That blower's drying the back wheels now. So with a steel brush, or if this one's a brass brush, we're going to try and knock loose what we can. Super exciting stuff. You can see it comes off very fine mist. So I constantly try blowing out a birthday candle. Doesn't need to be much. Just blowing as if you're doing a birthday candle. And I mean, look at that. We can already see the steel underneath it. So we're going to do this as long as we have to. Remove the rust as best we can. And then, again, we'll be clear coating it, which will help kill it off as well. Get rid of what you can. Make it look better. It will allow the oil to get down to the stuff that needs protected better as well. So I'm not gonna bore you guys with watching this. Let me cut back right now. So all I did was brush up the rust as best I could get to. Spent maybe 4 minutes. A little bit back there. Most of it's out here where the water gets chipped up. At this point, it's just the dry rust, so we have most of the moisture removed. What moisture wasn't air dried has been brushed away, as it were. At this point, there's still some powdery rust, I'm sure, so I'm going to use a wet rag. We're going to wipe it down, and it should look something like this. And nothing super special, just the same brush being used again. Wipe everything down. We're going to let it air dry and cut to the back side. Scrubbed down and wiped up. We'll let this dry and get back to the front end. So I wiped this down as fast as I could, get it as dry as I could. A little bit here, so maybe I'll let that air dry. But I have a clean rag and a less clean rag. This is the sacrificial one, and we're just going to use this. You don't want to saturate, well, you do want to saturate it, you don't want to slather it. So you don't really want it running and dripping down, but you do want it heavy enough that it's going to go into the individual creases. So I'll show you on this caliper. Take off any watches. So a little bit on the rag. Whatever gets on the rotor does. The car is heavy enough and the brakes aggressive enough that it will blow away. You're not going to get the whole caliper unless you take it off, which I won't be doing, but you can. Once upon a time, I was interested in maybe painting the calipers. Not because I care about how sporty my station wagon looks, but to protect these calipers. Got some feedback that paint doesn't really hold up to the heat too well, and turns out you get a lot of salt and dirt and mud and grime and brake shoe material and so you're going to be in here cleaning it a lot, and or the paint is going to be chipping a lot if you don't get them factory painted or what have you. So the linseed oil, while not chromatic, is going to give you the benefits I was looking for, which is environmental protection and prevention of the rust and corrosion. So just fold it over on itself, get it into these individual ribs, grooves, what have you, into the window there. The more you brush your teeth, you have them, so the more you get in here and get as much of the surface covered as you can, the better the protection is going to be. But let's say you only get 60% of it. That's 60% of no degradation for at least a winter. So I'm not going to bore you with the details. You can see it already looks better. It looks hydrated, saturated, which, yeah, you did just lather it in oil, but it does look much better. I'm going to go ahead and cut here. Maybe 7 minutes of work. We got all the way down that channel, up under Everything you want protected, brush it. Just like your teeth, which it turns out a toothbrush, getting all the way down in these wells, all the way around these nuts and bolts along that seam, works very well. So I wiped down the surface areas I could with a saturated rag. Problem with that is the rag soaks up the oil and kind of holds it. So you can paint the larger areas with that. But once you get into the nooks and crannies, a toothbrush, pretty well saturated, works pretty well. And again, it's by definition, as you go like this, is going to splatter it all over the place, and it's going to soak into all the imperfections in between the seams and seals of the individual linkages and mounts for the metal. So the more work you spend here, I mean, you've already done the work to get this far, right? So the more work you do at this point, the better the returns. This is the whole protection aspect, is getting the majority of the surfaces covered. So go ahead and take your time with this, enjoy your time with this, and again, make sure that you get the bottom of these surfaces as best you can. That's where the majority of the salt is going to hit. It should drip off, right, because gravity and the water spraying up there and all that. But go ahead and take your time, do it right, get as much of it as you can, and then move on to the back wheel. And again, we did the rear. All sorts of shimmery, shiny. Looks very nice, from what I can tell. Got quite a ways under there. What you can do, better off you will be. Gotta say, that toothbrush covers smaller areas, of course, but very nicely saturates and splatters everywhere. So I got it into individual joints and cracks and crevices and all the places. And again, you can see this is kind of a browner color than here. That's browner than here. So you can tell where the rust is. And the funny thing is, well, funny, not funny, haha, funny, unfortunate. The pivoting part, the angles, the ends, the terminations, the parts that have the hinges and the bolts and stuff, those seem to be the ends that have the most rust, which is kind of unfortunate. But again, that's why we're gonna knock free what we can and coat what we can, and we'll be better off for it. So I'm in the middle of a tire rotation. Let's go ahead and finish that up. But I appreciate you guys coming along for this. I intend to do a video before the beginning of winter to show just how effective the linseed oil is, for my benefit as much as yours. But it goes on relatively simply. It is going to take time, but it is not going to take too much effort. It is going to take being on your back for a while, but have yourself a thick jacket that you can lay on and you should be okay. So that is what we have. It will cure over the next several days, but it's going to, as an oil, reject moisture until it dries. Once it dries, it's essentially a clear coat. It's going to prevent oxidation from being capable of happening. It's going to seal in the rust so it cannot grow any further. It's going to allow you to still remove pins and bolts and all if you need to, but until then, it's going to laminate in all of the metal and protect it better than it would have been. I mean, that's why they painted in the first place. But again, the paint is going to start chipping and peeling where the welds are and where the ends of the metal terminate and where the connections are and the pivot points and the bolts and all that stuff. So if it moves, it's going to wear, and if it wears, it's going to introduce rust. So try and coat as best you can, and the oil will start hardening, and where there are pivots and all, it's still going to allow them to do what they need to, and you'll be better off for it. So that's all I have for today. I appreciate you guys coming along for the not ride, since I don't have wheels on, but go along with me on that. So as always, this is outside the target demographic. I appreciate you guys coming by. Any questions, comments, concerns you have, leave them in the comments section below, and I will catch you guys in the next video.